rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
It is time to make the rainbow sacred again. Guys, it is time for us to use Flag Day as a way to drown out the pride flag. They stole the rainbow from us. It is time to take it back. This day should stand for promise, not pride, or the rainbow should. Perfection, not perversion. Inclusion, not exclusion. Selflessness, not selfishness. Holiness, not horniness. And also, I'm going to be breaking down the origins of the pride flag and how the right must take on the issue and take the rainbow back from the LGBT communists. Stay tuned for this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. All right, welcome back to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Obviously, yesterday we had some big news with the former president Donald Trump pleading not guilty to 37 counts against him. This latest indictment, this latest political attack on the former president by the left, and Jack Smith, who's a totally corrupt prosecutor, a totally corrupt political hack. I'll be sitting in for the Officer Tatum next week. Perhaps I will go through some of the history. Perhaps I'll even do it before. Some of the history of Jack Smith and who he is. I'm sure some of you have heard it, but have quite possibly forgotten it. And so it is important that you understand this, as well as I'll do a review on Crossfire Hurricane. It's really important that we understand all that is going on with this case. It's really important. Obviously, it sets a precedent. It is dangerous for the United States of America. I'm not under the illusion or delusion that former President Trump didn't do anything wrong or he couldn't have done things better. Obviously, he could have, right? But at the same token, so could Mike Pence, who shouldn't have had classified documents as a vice president at his home. Former, VP Biden, now President Biden, that had classified documents at his home and in his garage, and also as a senator, completely illegal for him to have those. Hillary Clinton, that destroyed 33,000 emails. I mean, the list, seriously, the list goes on. Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Bruce Orr, all of these people that should be suffering penalties under the federal law, which are not. Now, I will just say this. I don't believe that any former president, current or former president, should go to prison. Even the corrupt Joe Biden, as much as I would like to see him in a jumpsuit in his latter days in life, I don't even believe he should go to prison. While he was vice president or senator, frankly, I wouldn't have mind. But at this point, we have to be the United States. Our Constitution comes first. We are not a banana republic. I don't want to turn into a banana republic, and we are headed that way. And Republicans need to stave it off. So I think Mark Levin, he was on Hannity's show last night. He gave the best synopsis that I saw out there, and I want you guys to hear that. But before we go to that, I'm just going to give you a few more things that are breaking or that have happened in the news, that are in the news, I should say. New polling indicates that there's declining support for biological male athletes competing against women. And I just think it's pushback. I think people are so sick and tired of the trans communists that they're finally pushing back. I mean, common sense, hopefully, will reign supreme at the end of the day, and it's starting to happen. So the story goes like this. This, according to Gallup, a larger majority of Americans now, 69% of Americans, than in 2021, which was 62%, say transgender athletes should only be allowed to compete on sports teams that conform with their birth gender. Now, we all wish that was 100%, but that is progress. We're moving in the right direction. Likewise, fewer endorsed transgender athletes being able to play on teams that match their current gender identity. That's down 20%, down 26%. Down from, or to 26%, down from 34%. The issue that has sparked debate at all levels of competitive sports, particularly around transgender women's ability to play on women's teams. Sports governing bodies and schools have adopted a range of policies on the issue, some more inclusive of gender participation than others. But the bottom line is the support behind it is declining, and that is a good thing. Common sense is prevailing, and we need to keep pushing back against this stuff. The reason why these culture wars are so important, and why we'll get into the issue of making the rainbow sacred again. The culture issue is important because of the way the left uses them. The left doesn't care about the lesbian or gay community. They really don't care. They care about them as much as they care about the black community. They want to use the black community in order to advance their agenda. How do you do that? You get blacks mad, you get gays mad, and then you pretend like you're on their side. And what you do is, since you got them supporting you, you can advance all these other radical communist, left-wing, agenda-filled policies, and these people will follow you because they feel like you're their homeboy or you're their homegirl. That's all the left does. They make people get hot, bothered, angry, all emotional, and then they champion their causes so that those people, those victim classes, will champion their agenda to fundamentally transform America. That's all that's happening. That's all that's happening. All right, I already told you about President Trump. We'll get to the we'll get to the video with Mark Levin shortly. California also looking to amend a state law to remove children from parents who do not affirm their gender identity. So you have some kid that comes out the womb 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and if he says, listen, especially when you're going through a court proceeding for custody, if there's divorced parents, you go through a court proceeding. If that kid says, that little boy says, daddy, I feel like a girl, and his dad says, son, let's be real, you've got a penis. And his son says, no, daddy, I feel like a girl, and that dad doesn't affirm it, that child could be taken away from the father or vice versa. This is absolutely sick. This stuff is spearheaded by some evil, satanic, demonic people in the California legislature. There's this one guy that happens to be a gay activist. His last name is Wiener, and it's fitting. I forget his first name. But anyway, you guys heard that. And I should have got the video of this, the Pride event, where at the White House, where two activists were partying topless on the White House lawn. And actually, one of the activists had a good point. I do think that the right may be reacting to this in the wrong way, although it should be an argument of decency. Whether it's men or women, you should keep your shirt on at the White House. This should be an argument of decency. And what one of the trans people is saying, a dude that's pretending to be a girl that has breasts, is saying, hey, listen, if you guys are offended by this, all you're doing is affirming that I really am a woman. And I'm like, man, that is an effective argument coming from the left. But the issue is decency. The issue is morality. Hey, homeboy, you keep your freaking shirt on. I don't care if you have male breasts. I don't care if you have female breasts. Keep your freaking shirt on. And I think the reason why, obviously beyond the fact that the Biden administration and the left, the radical left, the trans communists are donating to the Democrat Party, if you will, I think Biden and his family, there's an issue. I think they need to normalize perversion. I think he is a pervert. I personally believe, this is my opinion. You remember his daughter in a diary said that she was showering with her dad at an age that was inappropriate, an age where she started to get turned on by seeing her butt naked dad, Joe Biden. That's absolutely freaking disgusting. If you have a little child, the moment they turn around and say, daddy, what is that? Or mommy, what is that? Okay, son or daughter, you're not going to be showering or taking baths with me anymore, because they're starting to get curious. And you don't want to arouse anything in them that is unnatural and sinful and wrong. Joe Biden didn't do that. He liked taking showers with his older daughter. Anyway. Don't make me go on with that, Gabe. I don't know why you allowed me to go that far. Governor Gavin Newsom says California homelessness crisis endures, and he blames Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger because Democrats are never to blame, even when they have power and they run on issues like fixing homelessness like he did, and he doesn't do it, and homelessness gets worse. It's not their fault. It's the other person's fault, even though they have the power. But that's what the Democrat Party does. Blame, 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 blame. They never have any solutions, because the truth is they don't try to fix things. They just try to stir the pot. Canadian officials warn fires could continue throughout the summer, and Bud Light loses its spot as the number one beer sold in America. And it is now Modelo. Let's keep dropping the Bud Light stuff. And I'm so frustrated. This Sunday, I was looking forward to going to Cracker Barrel for Father's Day. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I know some people don't like it, but I love the Country Boy breakfast. Their pancakes are my favorite. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm not going to be going. I'm not going to be going. I'm so sick and tired of people shoving this pride crap down my throat, and they're trying to do it with their rocker chairs. And like, man, you don't have to do that. Gay people buy rocking chairs too. You don't need to make them, the rainbow colors to say, hey, man, solidarity. It would be the same if you put like the Black Panther fist or something. Like, nobody needs to deal with that crap, man. Just be a place. You guys might hear my dogs in the background. Sorry. Just be a place where people can go out and enjoy company, family, friends, and eat a decent meal. That's it. Stop getting political. I know they're afraid these ESG scores. These corporations have to start pushing back. I don't know. Maybe stand strong and make a public announcement, if you will, that you are standing strong, and perhaps more people will visit your locale. Let me just touch on this. The Canadian officials warn fires could continue throughout the summer. So Canadian officials say the wildfires last week that sent a massive cloud of smoke into the U.S. and brought record-breaking pollution to major East Coast cities could continue all summer long. Talk about man-made climate change. This is a first in history of Quebec to fight so many fires, to evacuate so many people. This, according to Francois Bonnardel, the province's Minister of Public Security, said this past weekend. He said, quote, "We are going to have a fight that we think will last all summer," close quote. Already this year, nearly 17,800 square miles have reportedly burned in Canada, forcing thousands across the country to evacuate and relocate. Right now, reports show 447 active fires in Canada, with 220 of them considered to be, quote, out of control, close quote. More fires are expected because of drought conditions and long-range forecasts for warm temperatures, close quote. And I bet you there's something else that's going on that they won't talk about, because I guarantee you this is in part their fault, the Canadian government. It's deforestation. Cleaning up the freaking forest, right? So that it isn't, so that you don't have fuel for these massive fires. When you don't clean up debris from the floor of the forest, when you don't chop away dead stuff, then out the herd, so to speak, you make those forests just, I mean, they are just waiting to explode. You got to clean that stuff up. I'm so tired of the environmentalists that don't know crap. You clean up a forest, and what happens? You get seed droppings and all this kind of stuff. You can see it in your front yard. If you have a tree, if you have an oak tree or some other tree, those trees will drop pups, and before you know it, that is a tree. So that's what happens when you clean up the forest, contrary to what the left says, because they're just a bunch of freaking communists. So anyway, without any further ado, Gabe, let's get to this Mark Levin video, and then I'm going to go on to how to make the rainbow. I'm going to give you the origins of the pride flag is what I'll do. And I want to talk to you about making the rainbow sacred again. I think this is Pride Month. Today is Flag Day. We'll combine both of those issues, and and we'll figure out how to make the rainbow sacred again, and how to start drowning out the pride flag. We need to start doing it. I know that sounds combative. Good. It is time to put your combat boots on. It is time to be combative. Today is Flag Day, so for every one pride flag that's on your block, there should be 15, 20 American flags. It is time to drown out the pride flag and stop letting these people co-opt, these communists, LGBT communists, co-opt and steal God's sign for promise and mercy and grace. It's time to take it back, guys. So we'll talk about that. But first, here's what Mark Levin had to say about the Trump arraignment yesterday. And quite frankly, what he said is part of what I read on Officer Tatum's show last summer after the Mar-a-Lago raid. But he sums it up nicely and quickly, and he adds an element to it that I think you need to hear. So without any further ado, I'm going to let you listen to Mark Levin. Here's his appearance on Sean Hannity's program last night. Pay attention to this, por favor.
Here with more on all today's breaking news developments. I call him the Great One, Mark Levin. Great One, thank you for being with us. I know you got a lot to say tonight.
We have a prosecutor that used the wrong law. And I don't care how many former federal prosecutors and phony experts go on TV because they have a law degree and they think they know something when they know nothing. Most of them have spent their lives as ambulance chasers. Now I know why the people hate lawyers. I don't blame them, except for my wife and me, of course. Here's the bottom line. The Espionage Act has no applicability to this. Tell me, how many people have been prosecuted under the Espionage Act since 1917 who were president or vice president up until today? Zero. Lyndon Johnson took classified information with him. He had one of his aides keep it. They put it in an envelope. Johnson said, "Not till I die, give it to my library." And then the library got it, and they were sitting on it for 50 years, they were told to, involving top secret information about Vietnam and tapping the phone of Richard Nixon. Nobody remembers that. Isn't that weird? And of course, you have the Hillary Clinton example. You know, Hillary Clinton was never investigated for obstruction, Sean. It's not even that they didn't even investigate her. They didn't investigate her for perjury. And there was plenty of false statements. They didn't even investigate her for that. And the evidence is beyond anything that we've ever seen with a former Secretary of State. She wasn't even a former president. The Presidential Records Act doesn't even apply to her. And so the Espionage Act, I would argue, doesn't apply to any former president or any former vice president under the Presidential Act. Why? It's called the Presidential Records Act. People come on the TV and they say, well, he needs to have the law applied to him as it would anybody else. No, it's called the Presidential Records Act because he is the executive branch. He's the executive branch. So he doesn't have to rely on some subordinate. Here are the regulations. This is the way you do it, Mr. President. His power comes from the Constitution. He is a third branch of government. Him. He alone. Everything else flows from him. The framers created a president. They didn't create a CIA. They didn't create a special counsel. They didn't create an attorney general. They created a president. And this precedent that people are talking about, people need to pay attention to this. This was an Obama judge trying to help Clinton in 2012, and the Department of Justice should know all about it. And so should the National Archives. It was the case involving the socks, the sock drawer, and Judicial Watch. Now, what happened? Bill Clinton keeps these tapes, which have highly classified information on them, in his sock drawer, which is a little different than Sandy Berger, who kept them in his pants. But nonetheless, he kept them in his sock drawer. Then he retires. He's a former president. So Judicial Watch brings a lawsuit and says, hey, National Archives, go get those. We want to see some of those. So it gets in front of this Clinton judge, Jackson, in Washington. And what does she say? She reads the law, the Presidential Records Act, not the Espionage Act, or Clinton would be doing 50 years with his wife by now. No. She reads the Presidential Records Act. And you know what she concludes? I'll tell you what she concludes. She says the responding agency, the National Archives, the tapes were Mr. Clinton's personal records, therefore not subject to the Presidential Records Act or the Freedom of Information Act. The government's position was that Congress had decided the president and the president alone decides what is presidential record and what isn't. This is why they want to keep talking about the Espionage Act and not the Presidential Records Act. We had a legal analyst come on this network a few hours back, and he says, Presidential Records Act doesn't apply. It's the Federal Records Act because these documents weren't created by the Oval Office. I said, how much dumber is this going to get before this is over? It's what's in the possession of the president, not whether he created it or not whether the vice president created it, not whether the staff created it. The president gets CIA information. The president gets DIA information. The president gets all kinds of information. It comes into the Oval Office, some of which he might create, most of which he doesn't. One other thing, I have a question. For Bill Barr in particular, who's been very poisonous. Bill Barr, why wouldn't the prosecutor seek a civil remedy if he wants to seek any remedy at all? Why wouldn't he go to the court and say, I need an order, Your Honor, order them to turn all this stuff over under the Espionage Act? Well, if the judge is smart, the judge will say, get the hell out of my courtroom. What's this have to do with the Espionage Act? But maybe they're not so smart. Maybe they're as dumb as the guy that signed the warrant. And so what happens? You need three elements. You need an order. And what are the elements? For contempt. A judge can say, okay, I ordered you to turn him over and you didn't. Okay, they go back to the government and say, hold him in contempt. Civil contempt. A valid order exists, clearly defining an obligation. The accused party has the ability to comply with the order. The accused party has willfully refused to comply with the order. Then they're held in civil contempt. Judge can decide if one of the lawyers goes to jail or something. You don't say, you know what, we're going to move this, as Barr did stupidly, actually. We're going to move this from the Presidential Records Act to the Espionage Act. Well, how did they do that? They decided to criminalize the case. This entire prosecution comes from the criminalization of the case. The wrong statute. The wrong statute. So you know what they're doing now, Sean, in America? They're beating up on the potential judge. Oh, she better be careful. Oh, she's a Trump appointee. So they know what they're doing. These people are fascistic and Marxist. That's what they are. They used the wrong law. Donald Trump did not commit any crimes. He didn't obstruct justice. He didn't commit perjury. He didn't make false statements. It is the prosecutor. It is the attorney general who did this. And one other question for Merrick Garland. What the hell is it going to take you, pal, to appoint a special counsel against Biden? Allegations of bribery, 17 potential tapes. And yet, you know what, Sean? The attorney general knows all this. The FBI didn't turn this stuff over without briefing the attorney general. They have a very big table. I think it's on the 5th floor, and he sits there, and they tell him what he's going to do. Same with this prosecutor. The attorney general is the Svengali behind it all. And the deputy attorney general is the Svengali behind the attorney general. It's the wrong law. No president's ever been charged with violating the Espionage Act. Not Lyndon Johnson. Hillary Clinton wasn't charged. She wasn't even investigated for obstruction of justice. And one last thing. I do have to give Joe Biden some credit. 1917, Woodrow Wilson was president. He got this law passed, and he imprisoned 2,000 people, including Eugene Debs, who was the socialist running for president, and he ran for president from prison and got 6% of the vote. Wilson was a segregationist and a racist. Joe Biden was a segregationist and racist. So there you have it. A former segregationist and racist and a past segregationist and racist using the Espionage Act to try and destroy our country. And by the way, you legal analysts who are coming on TV, try to educate yourselves. Try to look a little bit at history. Obviously, read the Constitution, read the case law, be a little bit informed before you go on TV and make an ass out of yourself. I'm done.
All right. So that was Mark Levin, and he gave a great synopsis. Gabe, I hope you're able to clean up that audio. It was really difficult for me to hear, but hopefully you'll be able to clean it up so people are hearing that well. I know you will do your thing there, but just very important. I mean, the Presidential Records Act, they don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about the Espionage Act. I'm glad that Mark Levin, other people had talked about the Espionage Act and how Woodrow Wilson created that and abused that to jail political dissent, if you will, in the country during World War I. And he used it against somebody that was running against him, a socialist, right? Eugene Debs. You heard him talk about that. And Biden is using it the same way. But I love the fact that he pointed out, and Judicial Watch pointed this out back in the day as well, they're using the wrong law. They are using the wrong law. Espionage Act, Presidential Records Act. That isn't to say that Trump shouldn't have done things better. Not at all. He could have. But so could have Hillary and all of these other people that obviously violated the law. So if we're going to apply the law, listen, he gets the benefit of the doubt. He's the president. He's the president. He is the executive branch. And part of the problem, and honestly, even with conservatives, we don't talk about making the size of government smaller. And this is a danger. This is a danger. I feel like sometimes we get so emotional as to what's happening with former President Donald Trump that we don't sit and think, okay, how do we make government smaller? How do we look at what they're doing to him and make sure this never happens again? What policy positions need to be put in place? What departments need to be cut out? Perhaps what amendments need to be worked on to the Constitution, even though that's a tough haul. But that's very important. And we got to start thinking like that as well. President Trump, if he gets in, will be in for 4 years only. Maybe he'll choose, and frankly, if he chooses a vice president at this point, I think it should be DeSantis. I wasn't there at first. I think it should be DeSantis. I think, frankly, he should come out right now and say, no matter how nasty this thing gets, if DeSantis is the second man, he's going to be the VP, and then DeSantis can pick a VP, and then possibly you're looking at 20 years, but there's no guarantee. The communists are going to fight us like nobody's business. I'm not convinced that we'll even win in 2024, but with your help, everybody gets out and fights, and everybody gets out and does their thing, then I think we stand a good chance of winning. It just means we've got to do a lot more work to make sure that we get a Republican, either Trump or DeSantis elected. I don't, Vivek, I like his ideas. Who knows? Maybe he'll catch fire. Larry Elder, I'm hoping he'll get on stage. Those are the only four, frankly, that I'm interested in that I think will take the fight to the federal behemoth. I'm not sure that the others will, frankly. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Now, all right, so Mark Levin has covered that. He's covered that brilliantly. I did want to make a point of this. Well, first off, you heard Espionage Act. They're using that instead of the Presidential Records Act. They're using the wrong law entirely. Something else that he said I want to make mention of. It was kind of shady. I remember Julie Kelly tweeting this. It's kind of shady what they did in Washington. They got the grand jury to listen to all this evidence against the former president, and then they indicted him, or they agreed, however it works, agreed on an indictment there, and then they moved the case to Florida, and then it's to a favorable judge. And I think this is political. I think they know they have a bad case, a flawed case. I think they want the narrative going into 2024. I think they just want to be able to beat Donald Trump over the head with a cudgel. And I think they want to be able to say, if in fact this Judge Cannon lets him off, is basically, listen, he got a favorable judge. It's just all politics, guys. We're watching politics. All right, now. Let's get to this. Let's knock this out. Making the rainbow great again. First off, it's time for us to take back the rainbow. It is time to take back the rainbow. I'm so sick and tired. The left has intentionally used the rainbow as a spite against God, as a spite against Christ followers, as a spite against Jews. They're doing it intentionally. And this goes back to the inception of the Pride movement in 1978, which we'll get to. But the LGBT movement and organizers of Pride marches, again, intentionally co-opted the rainbow. And we need to understand that, and we need to take it back. I'm so tired of being a Christian that feels like, ooh, you kind of hesitate to wear anything with a rainbow on it. I saw a t-shirt one time that I liked with a rainbow on it, and I'm like, ooh, I don't want people to think I'm good. And I'm like, oh my God, help me, forgive me. It's wrong, but that's what the left has been able to do. And frankly, I think it's the fault of Christians. We can't let them do this anymore. For those of you that love you don't have to be a Christian to understand what the rainbow means, and the promise that God makes clear with the rainbow. And we'll get into the history. I know you know the history of it, but again, this rainbow, this pride flag, is used as a spite against Christians. The word gay, as a matter of fact, changed its meaning from the historical sense. They changed that in the 60s and the 70s. They adopted the so-called pride flag. Who was it? I got to find the name here. All right, we'll get to that. Well, we'll get to that. I'll have to find the name. I have it down in my notes somewhere, and then I lost it. Anyway, the word gay changed its meanings from the 60s and the 70s. Back in the 60s and the 70s, it meant happy, carefree, right? Happy-go-lucky. And then you have this pride movement that surged in San Francisco, California, and they co-opted that term. And now when you think of the term gay, and frankly, I didn't know this at first. You think of the term gay. I did know that gay meant happy, but I wasn't aware of how the co-opting started taking place in the 60s and 70s, because homosexual men were not known as gay men. They were known as homosexual men. So this has been intentional all along to spite or to undermine Christianity, to undermine Judeo-Christian values. All right. That's the way that it works. I don't hate gay people. I don't expect gay people to act like Christians. All right. And you shouldn't hate them. Lesbian, we shouldn't hate them. We should love them as creations of God. All right. But we also understand that love has a deeper meaning than what the world professes. We should love them enough to tell them about the love of Jesus Christ, because all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You are no better than them. So let's remember that. Let's have a humble attitude when it comes to these people. And I have to remind myself of that as well. All right. So the left, they're no longer this minority or the LGBT communists. They're not a group that's bullied. They do the bullying. They have tons of power. As a matter of fact, they dominate in most Western nations at this point. They're giving their political apparatus. I mean, they just dominate in Western culture. They're supported by corporations, by the police in many places. You saw in San Francisco where they hung the pride flag, or hanged the pride flag, I think is the proper way to say it, next to the American flag at the San Francisco Police Department, and they had their officers with rainbow colored this and that. I mean, it's insane. The government agencies, you saw what happened at the White House, where these one chick that thought she was a dude bared her male-looking chest. I'm trying to get these words right. It gets so confusing. And a dude that thinks he's a female bared his new female looking chest. And the issue is decency. The issue is decency. The left has no moral decency. They simply don't care. You're going to bow down to them. You're going to accept what they love, and you're going to love it yourself. You're going to take it. It's no longer about tolerance. It's no longer about tolerance. You better say that you love it just as much as they do. The rainbow is a symbol of God's mercy for all humanity, not just for Christians or Jews or gays or heterosexuals. It's for all humanity. That's what the rainbow stood for. And I think we have to put this in the political realm as well. I told you today is Flag Day. And I mentioned it, I'll mention it again, but in your neighborhoods, wherever you are, and frankly, for the entire month of Pride Month, you need to be hanging up the American flag. This should be our flag in the United States of America should be a point of, or a symbol of unity. There should be no exclusionary group that gets to be moral superior over another. All right. So hang your flag. The United States flag is a sign of unity. Damn what the leftists say. It's a sign of unity. And I almost think because we jacked up so much in the churches, we have to win the cultural and political fight now because we didn't stop it in the churches. That's just a fact, Jack. I'm sorry. We did a horrible job as people of faith. But that rainbow is a sign of humanity, is a sign of God's mercy. We shouldn't be ashamed as Christians to rock a rainbow flag or to fear that if we rock it, oh my God, are people going to look at us in the wrong way? Are they going to think we're gay? It should have never gotten to that point, but that's where it is. So we got to start taking it back. Also has become the symbol, the pride flag has become a symbol of support for the National Health Service in UK. This was a deliberate move. According to this column, I'm reading from a column from creation.com called Reclaiming the Rainbow by a person by the name of Andrew Sibley, who wrote a fantastic column. But he says here, this was a deliberate move, quote, created to be a way for NHS staff to demonstrate that they are aware of the issues that LGBT plus people can face when accessing healthcare. And guys, have you noticed this? That healthcare has been a way to normalize certain groups. Trans groups, whatever it may be, it's where you gain approval. It's where the scientists that think they're God say, hey, this is where you go to gain approval, right? That's weird, but it's become that way. All right, so here's the history of it. The first gay pride rainbow flags were produced for the San Francisco Gay Freedom Day Parade that was held on June 25th. In 1978, the original flag was designed by a man by the name of Gilbert Baker. It had 8 stripes, all right? Not the 6 stripes that they have today, but it had 8 stripes. Excuse me. And every single color meant something. And I thought that was interesting. Every single color meant something. So they were co-opting the rainbow, but every single color meant something. They added a color. Because the actual rainbow, which I'll get to in a second, actually has 7 colors, according to Sir Isaac Newton from back in the day. But they added a pink to it. All right, so pink is for sex. All right. Red is for life, orange is for healing, yellow for sun, green for nature, they turquoise for magic, blue for serenity, purple for spirit. But and then it morphed into the six stripe flag, which you see many using today. Now, the flag is portrayed as a symbol of sexual love and diversity, but there is no diversity. That community is exclusionary. It is not inclusive. It's you believe what I believe, you accept my behavior, damn your religious views, or else. They become bullies. They become bullies. It's very selfish. It's very exclusionary. Unlike the agape love that Christ talks about in the Bible in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, where God says, love is patient and it's kind. It does not envy. It doesn't boast, right? Isn't that what the LGBTQ whatever community does? It's not arrogant. It's not rude. It does not insist on its own way. Whoa, man, that's contrary to the LGBT movement. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things. It believes all things. It hopes all things. It endures all things. A much different definition by the creator of love, God himself. The pride flag ties love to sexual diversity, promiscuity, and selfish pleasure, not selfless. Remember my little short at the beginning, right? Selflessness. Here's what the pride flag does. It promotes pride over promise. It promotes perversion over perfection. It promotes exclusion over inclusion. It promotes selfishness over selflessness. It promotes horniness over holiness. We got to put an end to this stuff. We got to put an end to this stuff. We got to fight back. This is why the cultural wars have become so very important. Again, the term gay wasn't even used until the 60s or 70s as far as talking about homosexual behavior. This person talks about when I believe it's he. Andrew. When he was a child, there was a popular children's saying, and it says this: the child that is born on the Sabbath day is blithe and bunny and good and gay. So that was something that you heard, that he heard growing up as a child, perhaps on Sunday, perhaps in Sunday school. But now they co-opted that term. That's what the left does. They co-opt language, they co-opt symbols, and then we're left on the defense. The communists and the LGBTQ movement have effectively turned the rainbow into a symbol for a social movement, for a political movement, and they've been able to do so because we just weren't that great at fighting back. We just let them do it, even though the rainbow has been basically a religious symbol for millennia within the Jewish and Christian teachings. All right, we know what happened when God flooded the earth. He was punishing sin, man's sin. Oh, God is so evil. Shut up. You're evil. God is good. He created us. All right. He can figure it out. He sets the rules. He sets the rules. All right. But Genesis 6-8 and also Genesis 9-11, God said, I establish my covenant with you that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And then God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow. It's a Hebrew word, quasheth, in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. So he calls, look at the shape of the rainbow. It's shaped like a bow. He calls it his bow. The rainbow then is a symbol of God's promise to you. It isn't about pride. It's the total opposite. It's about promise. The word quasheth in the passage again means archer's bow. God is saying in these verses that his bow is established in the sky as a sign of the mercy that, quote, while the earth remains seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Genesis 8:22. The rainbow then is a symbol of God's covenantal promise to all mankind and of God's grace. It also symbolically points to the glory and the ascendancy of the Messiah. So Noah passed through the flood waters, secure in the ark, in order to rescue mankind and animal life. And then likewise, you have Christ that experienced death, spent 3 days in the grave before his resurrection and before his ascension into heaven through clouds into glory. The image of the rainbow forms part of a vision of the glorified Jesus in John's Revelation 4, 2 through 6. See, God owns the rainbow. And Christians need to speak up about it. Even if you're not a Christian, if you're tired of the LGBT communists bullying you, use Flag Day as a way to start pushing back. Keep that flag raised all month long, all right? And it says here in Revelation 4, 2 through 6, and behold, a throne stood in heaven with one seated on the throne. And he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and cornelian, and round the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. From the throne came flashes of lightning and rumblings of peals of thunder, and before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 spirits of God, 7 colors in the rainbow. And before the throne there was as it were a sea of glass like crystal. This from Revelation, the book of Revelation 4, 2 through 6. And then John's vision continues in Revelations 10, 1 through 6, where he sees a mighty angel with a, quote, rainbow over his head. God uses the rainbow, guys. Some Bible commentators say this is another picture of Christ. All right. Similarly, in the first chapter of Ezekiel 1, 26 through 28, a messianic vision is recorded by the prophet in which he observes a likeness, quote, likeness with a human appearance, close quote, seated upon a glorious throne of fiery sapphire. In verse 28, we read, like the appearance of the bow, rainbow, that is in a cloud on the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness all around. I mean, this is fascinating stuff. And then you get to God's design. There's more references here that I won't go through, but the final thing is God's design. I was telling you about Isaac Newton, who claimed that the rainbow actually contained 7 colors. All right, not 6 colors, like the pride flag, and many people believe, mirroring the musical scale, he said, which has 7 major notes. Although in reality, the colors of the rainbow are continuous, according to the columnist. All right, the rainbow is evidence of God's design and wonder in the world, which adds to the beauty of creation and human existence, and shall lead to praise and worship of God, not of a social and political movement full of communists. The primary rainbow is produced by the refraction and reflection of white light, actually, that's inside of the raindrops, many raindrops. The light is separated into a distinct band by the water droplets because of the slightly different wavelengths of each color. Sometimes a secondary weaker bow is visible. We've seen that, where it looks like a double rainbow produced by a double reflection within the raindrops. That is so cool. Therefore, it is reversed and observed higher in the sky. And then there's the Alexander band, that kind of dark band that sits in between the more brightly colored rainbow and the rainbow that looks more faded in the background, which is a reflection. It's amazing. It's amazing. So it's time for us to make the rainbow sacred again. We can use Flag Day, because unfortunately this has become political. It has become cultural. And because we didn't do enough, frankly, sharing the gospel and sharing the importance of and the meaning and the symbol, the biblical meaning and symbol of the rainbow, the left took it from us. And now they're using it to mock God. And we got to stop that. And we can stop that. Today's show is brought to you in part by, or actually brought to you by MyPillow.com. Guys, seriously, MyPillow, he's a great Christian man. Mike Lindell is. You guys may know his story. Literally from crack addict to CEO. God can do wonders. Now he's creating products, American-made products, American jobs, American manufacturing. The new MyPillow 2.0 comes with the same patented adjustable feel as the original MyPillow. All right. But now it's softer, smoother, and cooler because it has a temperature regulating thread surrounding the pillow. And I absolutely love it. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L. All right. You can help provide American jobs, get an American made product, help this man, Mike Lindell, that's a patriot fighting for your freedoms and the country, and get a good night's rest, frankly. There's a buy one, get one free offer. I forgot to mention that. Buy one, get one free. So you get 2 My Pillows for the price of one when you enter the promo code at mypillow.com, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Guys, you know where to find me online, but I'm going to mention this anyway because I do need your help. Listen, I want to spread this podcast, and I need your help doing it. That's the only way that it happens. You got to share it. If you go to YouTube and Rumble, you can watch us live. Please rate and review it. Give us a 5. That way we move up the charts. More people can listen to this podcast if you help us out in that way. It's a way to be active, frankly, as Christians, as religious people, as conservatives, as patriots. You know, maybe you're an atheist. I don't know, but you like the podcast. You could share it. I would appreciate that. Find us on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. All right. We're on True Social, Getter. So anywhere where you are, you should be able to find me at The Carl Jackson Show. I'm sorry, at The Carl Jackson Show. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Let's make the rainbow sacred again. And until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.